First of all, I'd like to thank the organizing committee for being so gracious and inviting me for the second year, and then allowing me to charter the course for the next couple of hours for us, right? Predominantly, it only means one thing for me. It's about trying to engage the audience and making sure that both the young minds and their peers and their support factors at home have three fundamental pillars coined out at the end of this entire session that we do together. And I'm mentioning we do together, right? The first one is clarity, right? It's clarity about oneself, it's clarity about our own strengths, and it's also clarity about where do we want to be. It's a very tall order to ask of a teenager, but it's also a fundamental thing to get right as soon as possible in life. First is clarity. The second is confidence, right? We speak a lot about it in university, but we lack functional, structured approach to imbibe confidence in our journey between the age of 15 and 30. And that's the fact of life, right? We get edged on by our well-wishers and our parents and our peers, but nothing that tells us this is where you need to build a wall of confidence for you to go the places you want to go. So first is clarity, next is confidence. The last one, which I hope you will hear from all our speakers and our eminent guests, is how to have conviction in where you're headed. So these three C's for me are the only learnings that I honestly and very earnestly expect all of you, parents and kids alike, to take home today. It's clarity, it's confidence, and it's conviction. Uma spoke so much about what I do. Predominantly, it's urban planning, but using sustainability and innovation as the only means for urban planning. I stress on the word only, right? We all live in a very judgmental, capitalistic society, right? There's no two ways about it. Where we live, who we hang out with, what clubs we have associations on, all this is part of our social meter and how we are looked upon, right? Some wise men in Greece said, we're always three things simultaneously: who we are, who we portray who we are, okay, who others think we are. We're a victim of this. We all are. We're in this circle of, trying to project what's best for us. Sometimes it's better to figure out what's best for us internally. This is why I start with clarity, right? So the 8 speakers who I am now very diligently responsible to present to you are going to be epitomes of their own journeys, of which learnings are going to be critical for you. Each one of them is going to reflect their journey, and you will see the level of clarity and where it stemmed from. It always stems from confusion. Confusion about where you want to go, where you can go, and what happens when you got there. After that, how they found clarity is what you need to hear them speak. And there'll be a lot of inner dialogue within your own minds that could get cleared because of their experience. And that is why this particular session has been created and structured in such a fashion that you hear some real-world stories, because you can always go to YouTube, TikTok, and now DeepSeek to understand what's already existing in the world for you to read. But what you will not get there is those real-world experiences. Confusion of what you want to do and whether it will be good for you, and clarity of figuring out how to get to that point is the first stage. The second stage is, once you've understood this is where you want to be, it's important to build confidence as you go further. How do you build confidence? Again, 8 stellar examples who had a minimum of a decade of real-world experience, where they started off and where they are today and what they're going to leave behind for you to take home, right? I love the fact that some of you have a pen and are taking notes. I'm extremely old school. This is what happens when you're 55, 56. You like to take notes, right? Taking notes allows you to structure your entire thought process of the next 3 hours in a particular discipline. So if there's anybody here who's still thinking, should I or should I not take notes? My guess is, please do, right? The next and the last thing about this clarity, confidence, conviction is, When you're finally in your 30s, which all of us will be, right? You're going to be staring at competition, internal and external. And there is no single mantra for success there. Unless you're convinced, and that's where conviction comes, that you are on the right path. Meaning your arrow and your bow are going to hit bullseye or already hit bullseye, and what next? That is not a life lesson that you can duplicate or get DeepSeek to give you any agenda or any matrix will work. It won't. It just won't. Simply because of two things. One, what you set out to do, you will have hurdles that you never thought about, and that's life. Second, there is a professional life and there is a personal life, right? More often than not, we do all our planning professionally. What on earth happens on the personal front? Right? We all have families, we have responsibilities, we have indirect responsibilities, and we are part of a social culture that obviously we can't alienate from. So if you have not planned your personal life to imbibe the professional sector, I don't know if you're not going to fall up front or later, but certainly you will. Everything from time management to supply chain to logistics to how are you going to lead your life, how much are you going to end up saving, how are you going to spend the next 20 years of your blooming career if your social sector is not in your control, or at least seemingly in your control, right? So this is how I'd like to structure our entire evening. It's trying to help you understand clarity, gain confidence and conviction through real life examples. Now, after they speak, I am definitely going to come back and try and give you a meter, which can be templatized if you wish to say so that you can go back home with at least one definite thought. What is it that you're missing? It's far more important when you're young to understand what is missing, not what is possible. Because the world is possible. What's missing is what you need to really focus on, right? This being, the entire template of why this learning is so important to you, I'd now like to go on and start calling our speakers. You must know that each one of them, I think two of them are from this school, this very institution, and the others are around this institution and pretty much in the exact same social setting that all of you sitting here are from. So if there's anything that you think you're uniquely in a position not to overcome, then I'm sure you'll find answers in what they're going to tell you. Yep. That could be industry related, and more importantly, that could be personal. It would be about, I need a banking career. I think I'm good in retail banking. You have no clue what real retail banking is. Don't go by what you see, right? Then you ask them, is this really possible? Is London the best place? Should I shift to Birmingham? Leeds? Where should I go? Real world questions, real world inhibitions, real world experiences. That's precisely what we want to do here. This is, I think, the best endeavor that I have seen in my 28 years career, where an institution outside of the academics is bringing forth a platform for students and parents alike, right? Forgive me for sounding so student and entrepreneur positive, right? I think because I'm in the world of teaching, I think our first level of clarity and confidence must come from our homes. We cannot be riddled by our prejudged, predetermined understanding of success. Those times are gone. The kids today are definitely facing an uphill task in terms of external competition, far more than what we can comprehend. It gets even more complicated when all of them have the same resource pool of knowledge, because now they have to stand out 1 in a million with everybody having the same amount of input. It becomes extremely critical for them to understand clarity of one's own intrinsic capability, and nobody better than their parents and their inner circle can help them with that clarity. Unfortunately, no schooling system teaches this. I've lived in Sweden for 19 years, and I cringe at the fact that the English schooling system is not able to imbibe that one particular class that actually says character development. From the age of 5, kids in Swedish schools undergo 45 minutes once a week with anybody that they want to talk to in the school or outside, and it's called CB, character development. All they want to speak about is, I'll have to paint, I'll have to do this, but my folks don't like it, I don't have the money, or I don't have the support. It's anything that comes to their mind. It's about getting clarity of thought when you're 5 years of age. Oh, summer's here. Everybody says it's a great time to have vacation, but I don't really like it. I want to be in school. I want to be with my friends. I don't want to spend the whole day with two people who call themselves mommy and daddy and keep imposing things on me. This is clarity of thought. We just don't have that concept of character building. So whose responsibility is it now? You're 15, you're 16, you want to do something else, and your mom and dad are looking at you over a dinner table and saying, oh, that has no scope. Or, I know 3 people who failed there. Amazing clarity of confidence, right? This is precisely what we need to stop. Stop being judgmental. And it won't come without clarity. Confusions will always persist. But how do you know where you're going to be? How do we know wherever you want to be is going to be the place that you ought to be? These are very clear, very important, very critical questions. Why wait till you're 35 to say, I'm in mid-career problem issue, now let's discuss this. Why not discuss this when you're 15? But then, everybody at home needs to be open about this very, very transparent elephant in the room discussion for us to start having clarity. That's it for me for now. You're going to hear all the experiences.